All right, hey everybody, welcome back. So in this video, we're going to take a look at how to be able to bounce back. So a lot of studies have been done, a lot of research has been done on people that have been through hell and back, that have been through wars, that have experienced adversities, that have experienced natural calamities and disasters and calamities, and came out the other side stronger, better, improved, having types of post-traumatic growth. Now for this, we're going to take a look at two studies. One is right here, it's called, what's it called? The Biology of Human Resilience, Opportunities for Enhancing Resilience Across the Lifespan. Now, these authors, they actually put this group of studies into a book, which is terrific. I'm just going to talk about this one author here, Stephen Sudwick. You can see he's got over 13,000 citations, so obviously he's put together some work that's important and empowering, and people are referencing him a lot. And he's at the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs, so he's basically seen people go through all kinds of horrible stuff. Warfare. So when it comes to resilience and bouncing back, there's some stuff that we really can't do much with, like our genetics or our family or the way we were raised. That stuff's already kind of cast in stone-ish. But other parts we can have an influence on, and that's what's kind of in this purple box here and this green box. So these are things that are contributors that enable people to be bouncing back, right? So if you look at all the people that had the skill of being able to come back stronger after being kind of pushed down by the slings and arrows in life, well, if you just kind of look at what they all have in common, that's basically what this paper is a distillation of, okay? So you'll see some of the psychological factors here like self-efficacy, optimism, positive emotions, cognitive reappraisal. We'll go into this in much more detail later. But what I wanted to really show with you is just show some of the neurobiology of resilience. So when you take a look at people that are able to bounce back, that have resilience, they have certain particular brain characteristics. So that's what this stuff in here is, and we'll go into that into more detail. I just want to show you what that one source is. So again, this is about the biology of human resilience, and we're going to be showing you opportunities for enhancing resilience across the lifespan. So that's for adults. The second thing that I wanted to share with you is about this paper right here. And that's about thriving, right? If you've had some kind of setback, maybe you've had a breakup, maybe you've had a divorce, maybe your parents passed away, right? Maybe you've had some kind of financial setback, who knows? But, you know, life has a way of not always being the smoothest and easiest that it can be. So this is a paper about what makes a thriver, right? Some people are able to go through life, and no matter what you throw at them, they just come out stronger and better and faster. Now, there's two ways of thriving. One is through post-traumatic growth. So something bad happens and they come out stronger. So think of somebody like Tina Turner, right? She was used to getting beat up by Ike Turner. They split up and divorced. She was penniless. She had 50 cents to her name. And then she became the queen of rock and roll, right? That would be an excellent example, a person with post-traumatic growth. But there's also post-ecstatic growth. That's where things are going good and then just become even better. So what we're going to be doing here is taking a look at what the commonalities are for people with post-traumatic growth, post-ecstatic growth, and that are resilient. We're going to combine all that stuff together so that you can be bouncing back on your own and using some of this information to be able to improve your own ability for getting through adversities. And you can see some of the life events that people have been through: death of a spouse, childhood sexual molestation, forced sexual assault, death of a close family member, divorce, death of a close friend, right? This whole list goes on and on and on. So people have always experienced difficulties, and some people come out stronger. So what we're going to do is take a look at what those similarities are. Let me just scroll on down here to the bottom line. We got the Thriver model, so we're going to go through that together, and then we have this resilience model. We're going to go through that together. This isn't just about behavior. We're also going to be taking a look at what some of the neurobiological information is and data is that's going to be enabling you for bouncing back. And then once you've kind of amassed this data and you become familiar with the kind of terminology of it, then we'll use that for the fodder or the ingredients for a hypnosis script that are going to be doing that's going to enable you to be bouncing back like a rock star by having rock star resilience. And by that, I'm talking about having the ability to thrive after some kind of adversity. For all this stuff to make more sense, it's going to be easier if we just take a look at this diagram here. So, and I'll show you why in a moment here, because if we take a look at some of the stuff that's underlined in red, it'll say, for example, better automatic emotion regulation involving activation of the anterior cingulate cortex and ventromedial PFC is associated with greater executive function required to mount executive responses to threat. You might hear that and just think, well, okay, that's good to know, but where are those things? What I thought it would be best is if I just kind of give you like a roadmap of where we're looking to have blood travel along so that we can have these portions of the brain become a bit more active and engaged if we're going to be using this Thriver model for being able to bounce back. So this top layer of the brain here, I call it the top, but I'm wrong because in Latin this means dorsal, and dorsal means back. So apparently the top of the head, they use the word back. And just to give you a little bit more context, if you look at a dolphin or that shark from Jaws, right? Doo-doo, doo-doo, doo-doo. That fin on the top is a dorsal fin. So that's their back. That makes sense. If you look on an F-16, that's a dorsal fin. That B section there, that's a dorsal fin. So I guess that's on the back. But then on the human brain, our dorsal fin, if we had one, I guess you could say it's on what? The back of what? Our head? No, it's on the top. But anyways, they call it dorsal. So from here on in, that's what we're going to do. We're just going to stick with that. We'll call that dorsal. I just want to make sure that you guys all got that. So top layer, just think of it like a Rubik's Cube. And that layer at the top shelf there would be called dorsal, okay? Now let's talk about the next chunk, which is ventral stuff. So ventral stuff, that means Latin for belly. So if you look at like your forehead, the belly of your forehead, that's the ventral area. Okay, so that one at least makes a little bit of sense. Now let's take a look at, if we're going to just keep tic-tac-toeing on this prefrontal cortex here, we've got the middle region, that's called medial. Well, that sounds like it makes sense, right? So if we have activity in that middle region, that would be known as medial. And then we got these wings here to the side. So if you think in football, when a dude passes it to the guy right beside him, that's a lateral pass, right? Well, in the prefrontal cortex, this would be lateral also. Now that we've got some of that, why is that important? Because the terms here, the part of the neurobiology as far as looking at what gets affected with people that have resilience and what we're looking to be doing and improving and enhancing are these particular areas of the brain. So we're looking at ACC, that's the anterior cingulate cortex. You can't see it here in this image, but we'll get to that in a moment. But you can see here, when you hear about the region called the ventral medial prefrontal cortex, well, we'd have to think, okay, prefrontal cortex, that's that forehead chunk, and ventral medial, well, we know that ventral means belly, so somewhere along that middle section, the middle row, and then M is medial. So we know that we're in that cross section right in the center. We got a center line going up and down the middle, that's the medial, and that center line that's going straight across, that's the ventral area, right? So ventral medial, we know that's a crisscross right dead smack center in the middle of our forehead, kind of like Dr. Manhattan where he puts that symbol in his head. Let's do another one. So DMPFC, D is for dorsal, and we all remember where dorsal is, right? That's that Jaws or dolphin or F-16 fin at the top there. Top shelf, that's dorsal. And then there's the M for medial. So DM, PFC is dorsal medial prefrontal cortex, right? So that would be that middle chunk right there. So now the next term would be the DLPFC. So what's that? Well, D again, that's dorsal. That's that Jaws. So that's that top layer, dorsal. And then lateral would be on the sides, right? So dorsal lateral prefrontal cortex, you could say that's just the corners, right? Those are the corners, top shelf corners. So the next one would be VLPFC, so ventral, right? We're talking about the belly here. So that's be middle. And lateral, so belly and to the side. So that would be VLPFC. Okay, so now we got kind of a geography of where we're looking to be having blood flowing. Okay, so now that you've got sort of a general idea as to what these things are, now we can go to our papers and take a look at the biology of resilience here, and you'll see how all this stuff relates and connects. So let's just start with this first sentence up here. It says, a rich body of research has identified psychosocial factors contributing to resilience in adulthood, including greater emotion regulation. So we want to have greater emotion regulation. That sounds like a good thing. Executive function, so we want to be able to plan things. And dispositional optimism. We want to be able to just naturally be optimistic. Active coping, right? We want to be able to cope with whatever challenges are. And cognitive reappraisal, this is another quality that people have that are resilient, and that's when stuff happens, they don't just look at it always as bad, they're able to look at it in other ways that it can make their lives better. And the next one, last one, is social support. Okay, so now that we know that, what's the next thing? So here they talk about meaning making and having a sense of purpose, so religious. Now we're going to get into the brain parts. Better emotion regulation involves activation of the anterior cingulate cortex. So ACC. I said that we would speak about that in a moment, and you know what? We will do that right now. So this is a paper about the neural correlates of mindfulness, meditation-related anxiety relief. So I'm just going to skim through this real quick. So basically they got people that are meditating, and they give them two things to do. One thing to do is to imagine the breathing, and the other thing to do is to not imaginative breathing, but to do body scan meditations. And so what this study had shown was how the brain changes with one compared to the other. So this top row here, it says ATB. You can see that means attention to breathing, and it activated this part. Meditation activated these circles, and this is where attention to breathing was stronger than meditation, so those chunks. But this is where meditation was stronger than attention to breathing. And you can see these circles in the front. So we got that white circle and that pink circle, right? That's the front of the brain here. And what that is ACC, all right? Anterior cingulate cortex. That's exactly what we were speaking about. And if we go back here to this resilience paper, you can see here that they speak about automatic emotion regulation involves activation of the ACC. And what turns this on is going to be this very specific meditation, which is a body scan meditation. So if we do a body scan meditation, it's going to cause greater activation in the anterior cingulate cortex. Now, one of the behavioral aspects of having blood flowing in there is that you're going to be in the present moment. A body scan meditation gets you into the present moment and gets blood flowing more into this area. And having blood flow there is something that people that bounce back, that's what they have. And because you're seeking to be having some of that action, that's the way to be getting some of it. Next, we're going to take a look at what they're also talking about here is the ventromedial PFC. So VMPFC, if you remember, ventral is guts, medial is down that middle line. So that again is right dead center, ventromedial prefrontal cortex. And what's this good for? Greater executive functioning and cognitive flexibility in challenging situations. And think about it, if you've had a breakup, if you've had a divorce, if you're going through some kind of horrible traumatic experience or trying to have, your life lived normally, but you're having flashbacks of the past, well, having cognitive flexibility and being able to think about those things differently is going to require using this part of the brain, this ventral medial prefrontal cortex and this anterior cingulate cortex. Okay, so when we're looking at this paper here, that's exactly what they're speaking about. So let's just read this other sentence here. It says higher emotion regulation capacity, so being able to have better control of our emotions, also supports cognitive flexibility in challenging situations, right? And that's exactly what we're looking for. And where are we going to get it? The VMPFC. Okay, so already what have we learned? There's a part of the brain, this anterior cingulate cortex, is going to be enabling you to be speaking more into the present, being more into the present, and also being able to think about having blood flowing into the center part of your brain, which is the ventral medial prefrontal cortex, in order to be able to enhance your cognitive flexibility in challenging situations. You'll have greater executive function and automatic emotion regulation. All right, so now we know a little bit about where we're looking to have blood to be flowing. Now, further on into this study, they talk about cognitive reappraisal, which is an emotion regulation strategy involving reinterpreting the meaning of a situation, and doing that activates brain regions mediating cognitive control, such as dorsal medial prefrontal cortex, dorsal lateral prefrontal cortex, and the ventral lateral prefrontal cortex. And these things will help to modulate amygdala activation, right? Now that's important because when we're starting to freak out, maybe we're getting triggered by something, maybe we're feeling like we're going to have a bit of a panic attack or like a bout with anxiety, well then we want to be able to modulate our amygdala and let our body and brain know that, hey, we're safe. Well, that control, it comes from those parts, right? This dorsal lateral PFC, ventral lateral PFC, right? So that's why I wanted to be able to show you the importance of this. Is not just so that you understand where in your brain this is, but because we're going to be imagining and visualizing blood flowing from the back of the brain, actually the posterior cingulate cortex, and having it flowing and moving towards other structures of the brain so that you can be improving their functioning, and this can be improving your overall proclivity towards having greater resilience. Let's continue here. Positive emotions also supports resilience by promoting broader associative thinking and adaptive coping. Dispositional optimism, right, being optimistic, was found to correlate with anterior cingulate cortex activation. It's with individuals instructed to imagine future positive events. Well, guess what? We're going to have a session later where we're going to be having you imagining your anterior cingulate cortex activating, and you're going to be suggested to be imagining future positive events. Now that we're done with the biology of human resilience paper, we're going to move forward here to this Thriver paper. This is about unifying the concepts of post-traumatic growth and post-ecstatic growth. And you're going to notice here that there's some similarities with post-traumatic growth and with resilience. So again, I underlined some of these parts here, such as meaning making, having supportive relationships, and positive emotions facilitate growth processes after positive as well as traumatic experiences. All right, so I'm just going to scroll on down the line here, down to the parts that we really need. All right, so here we are at the Thriver model. I'm just going to go through this real quick. For the study, they developed a general model to help explain the occurrence of personal growth. The model is based on the assumption of within-person factors that are critical for positive development after positive and negative life events. And these factors were merged into a theoretical model which was applied not only to varying life events, but also in two different cultures, so USA and India. So the results support the hypothesis that post-traumatic growth and post-ecstatic growth are not only highly interrelated, but they might also be facilitated by parallel psychological factors. And that's what we're looking to be able to do here, is to facilitate this in you today. And what exactly? Well, it's this Thriver model. And what does that do? Well, it aims to explain, predict, and help to enable positive changes after major life events. And this is built of a couple other things you've heard of, like well-being, right? You've listened to Richie Davidson talk about well-being. You've probably listened to Marty Seligman talk about his PERMA theory. What's that? Well, I got that up here. You can see the arrow where it says positive emotions, engagement. So engagement is like getting into the flow of things. So if you're like painting or drawing or doing stuff, and you get like mountain climbing, not mountain climbing, who does that? Rock climbing, I don't know. When you get into the flow of stuff, that's what engagement is. Next is relationships, right? Having good relationships. Meaning, again, you're talking about having meaning, right? We're the meaning makers in life. And the last one here from the Seligman model is accomplishment, all right? So that's what PERMA is. All right, so let's just take a look at what they said here. And they'd shown that the current studies, they were a first step to test the Thriver model in a cross-cultural comparison approach. So the key components, again, meaning making, supportive relationships, and positive emotions showed strong relations with self-reported growth in the US and in the Indian sample. So this is really important, especially if you're looking for things to be making a pivot and a shift in your life. Because of this sentence here, it shows that these results are supported by earlier research on turning points, which identified meaning-making in times of life-altering experiences as a critical facilitator for psychological well-being. So if you're looking at it like everything is doom and gloom, well, it's going to be a lot easier to be thinking in that way habitually. But if you're looking at stuff in multiple ways, then your skills for meaning making are going to be better, and these are also going to be improving life-altering experiences and making those traumatic events easier to get through with growth. All right, so I'm just going to skip to the bottom line here. It says, in sum, thrivers might be described as persons with a well-developed ability to create meaning from their experiences, a secure attachment status, and a high positivity ratio. Now, one of the things about having resilience is not just being able to bounce back, but you don't just want to be bouncing back like 20 years from now. You like to be able to do that a lot faster than that, okay? And that boils down to a word called equanimity. And one of the people that's researched resilience and equanimity the most out of anybody that I've ever heard of is Dr. Richie Davidson. So let's just hear what he has to say about equanimity, because I don't want you thinking that you're going to be resilient, that makes you, like cold-hearted, and that you're never going to feel emotions again. It's actually a totally different thing. So let's hear from Richie about what equanimity is.
Well, one of the important things that happens, I think, with equanimity is has to do with resilience in a very specific way that we talk about resilience, which is the rapidity with which you recover from adversity. And so, when adversity happens, to paraphrase the bumper sticker, stuff happens. And we can't buffer ourselves from it. We can, however, change our relationship to it. And equanimity, in part, is about recovering quickly from adversity. It's not about becoming emotional zombies. People who have equanimity respond to emotional events in the context-appropriate way. And, I love to, as a student of emotion, I have benefited greatly from observing up close the emotional demeanor of some great masters like His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who is quite emotional. He certainly, he actually has the greatest dynamic range of emotions of any human being I've ever encountered. And what I mean by that is he can go from crying in response to learning about a tragic situation and expressing sadness, and he can be crying in one moment, and then he'll notice something funny in the next moment and burst out laughing. And there's, the emotions occur strongly, but they recover instantaneously. And there's no stickiness whatsoever. And so that's, I think, a manifestation of equanimity.
Okay, now I think we have enough for our hypnosis session to get over a breakup like a thriving rock star. So this will include a body scan induction to relax you and get you into the present and increase the circulation in your ACC. Also, there is use of some metaphors to subconsciously communicate the relationship and things that accelerate forward after a setback. And there's also going to be mention of doing a double inhalation, and this helps you relax faster while also detoxifying the body as the exhale dumps out carbon dioxide. And last, there is mention of the left dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, and the more action that you get there, the more you are able to access different rule sets, and this increases your equanimity while also reducing the stickiness of the problem memories. So, for example, if you had memories of your ex, well, those can trigger you to imagine exhaling them. And then as you are exhaling them, you are naturally detoxifying and you are relaxing and taking in new suggestions that are nudging you into growth. All right, so we're going to begin. We're going to put on just some relaxing music, and then we're just going to slow things all the way down so that you can be getting yourself into a theta brainwave state, and we can begin this session. So to start, you want to get yourself into a very relaxed position. So you want to make sure that you won't be disturbed for at least the next half hour or so. And while you're getting yourself all situated, you might as well think about whatever problems that you had that you were thinking about that might have been on your mind, and just drop it, okay? Because we don't need that for where we're going. Now, one thing that might be easier for helping you become even more relaxed is considering the visual of a dried sponge that's been out too long and isn't able to hold as much as it can be when placed under a warm stream of water, where it becomes more flexible and less rigid and more absorbent of what is flowing into, through, and through. Imagining this is much like your mind. When you become more relaxed, one way to be speeding up your ability to calm down and get into a theta brainwave state is with a double inhalation, which you can do right now. And just exhale all the way so that this carbon dioxide dump gives you an opportunity to really rest and relax and go loose and limp like a rag doll. Now, begin to imagine this back portion of your brain called the posterior cingulate cortex. Begin to migrate blood flow away from there, along the sides of your brain, and begin to be pulsing, progressing, and marching forward to the anterior cingulate cortex. And in doing so, it brings you more into the present, out of the past. And with greater blood flow in the ACC, you're noticing yourself how you can be having greater automatic emotion regulation and a far superior capability for emotional equanimity. There may have been times in the past when you had encountered setbacks. And in the future, when these happen again, or variations thereof, you'll be noticing how you may still get upset, but for less amounts of time, with a faster ability to get back down to baseline due to this increased ability for emotional regulation. And again, doing a double inhalation for additional relaxation, while envisioning greater blood flow into your anterior cingulate cortex. In this moment, you'll also take the opportunity to relax some of the tension in your jaw. And now relax your eyebrows and any tension you might have around your forehead. Now bring that attention down to your shoulders and allow them to relax. And as you're thinking about your shoulders, just begin to wonder which one is warmer, your left or your right. Just by thinking in this way brings you into the present. And thinking in the present ensures that you're getting your blood flowing into the anterior cingulate cortex. And again, this is improving your emotion regulation skills because you are in the present. This is where life happens. This is the bleeding edge where you can create. And now from your ACC, you're going to begin to imagine blood flowing from there to your ventral medial prefrontal cortex. This is more or less into the center of your forehead. This is where your sense of self resides. This is part of your default mode network. This is where there will be changes all the way. Relaxing. And in this region, you'll also be able to have greater cognitive flexibility in these challenging situations. Maybe it's people you work with, maybe it's family, maybe it's friends, maybe it's just circumstances that might seem like setbacks. But they push you forward, looking for new ways to find solutions. Because you've trained your brain to have greater blood flow into the ventral medial prefrontal cortex and away from, and far and away from this posterior cingulate cortex. You're noticing yourself mind wandering less and being in the present with greater frequency. And this enables you to be modeling the thriver ideology so that you can be thriving with greater ease, joy, and glory in the days and weeks and months and years ahead. Now, begin to imagine greater blood flowing up to the dorsal medial prefrontal cortex so that you can have greater cognitive reappraisal, which is an emotion regulation strategy that enables you to be reinterpreting the meanings of situations. And your skill in this region, in this arena, improves, strengthens, and becomes enhanced the more that you are allowing greater blood flow into the dorsal medial prefrontal cortex. You can also begin to smile while thinking of this so that you can get some serotonin mixed into this and enjoy some of this positive feedback of feeling good now, knowing that you are moving blood flowing away from the posterior cingulate cortex into the VMPFC and into the DMPFC. Now, you might feel somewhat emotional here. And these are just parts of transformation. It's like a caterpillar that might get sad about seeing its physiology changing and its skeletal structure transforming. But what the caterpillar may not realize is something that you already know. That moving into the new life will cost you the old one. Just as becoming a butterfly comes at the cost of no longer being a caterpillar, you're recognizing that this change in blood flow in your brain gives you a similar type of transformation. As you are acquiring greater skills for emotion regulation, here's where we get to do another double inhalation and exhale all the way out, going deeper to the state of relaxation and calm, so that your brain waves can go into the theta state, so that these suggestions become more absorbed and your brain becomes more absorbent and relaxed and loose and limp and open. And now imagine blood flowing up into these dorsal corners, into this dorsal lateral prefrontal cortex and your ventral lateral prefrontal cortex. So the blood's along the sides here enables you to have greater modulation for amygdala activation. This is a benefit because you get to be calming down faster. Further embodying this thriver mentality, as you are bouncing back with greater resilience, like a rock star, like the people that you have thought of in the past that have exhibited similar qualities, that you are embodying more of every day in every way. And again, you're going to be imagining your anterior cingulate cortex becoming a little bit more full. And in doing so, you'll be noticing how this will be increasing your optimism. Optimism is a sign of people that have resilience and are of the thriver mentality. And you are getting this in two ways. One, just through your own behavior, as you are noticing all the external examples. You can be exhibiting these types of manifestations. But there is also the internals. And that's by engaging the traffic in your brain to move more into the anterior cingulate cortex while you are imagining future events that work in your favor. Greater benefits, more joy, glory, expansion, progress, profits, love, relationships of every kind begin to improve. And all of these are linked to an increase in your overall well-being. As you do a double inhalation right here and now, getting your body to the state of relaxation all the more. In a moment, you're going to be asked to breathe into your left DLPFC. And you can do so now. And on this first breath, consider seeing yourself in the future and experiencing a whole range of positive emotions. Very good. And now, while continuing to breathe into your left DLPFC, imagine the ways in your life where you would be having greater engagement. So these would be moments when you get lost in the flow of something that you enjoy doing. And all the while, just continue to remember that you're breathing into your left DLPFC. And as that's going on, you're going to be imagining how your relationships are also going to be improving with all kinds of different people in all kinds of different ways. Very good. And now, while you're enjoying these joyful and positive emotions and engagements and relationships, you're also going to be consider the meaning of things. In particular, we can think about something like a slingshot or a catapult or even an arrow. For an arrow to travel far forward, it's got to be first pulled back some. And the same goes with a slingshot. It always has to have a setback first. And the same goes with a catapult. There's always that moment where there's that cranking of things seem to be going the wrong way and difficulty. But this is where your meaning making comes in, and you recognize how these are the moments for your pivots. And now, as you're continuing to breathe into your left dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, recognize what an incredible accomplishment you've already achieved, and how accomplishment is part of the PERMA model for thriving. And so just by relaxing, you are already moving yourself into positive directions. And so while you're here, you might as well consider what other accomplishments you could be achieving in the weeks, the months, and the years ahead throughout the timeline of your life. And I'm not certain if when you are thinking about this for the third or the fourth time, when you are realizing for the first time how much of a thriver you really are now. And now you can just take this time to relax and allow the session to finish so that when you're finally ready, you can wake up feeling refreshed and fantastic, or you can continue resting. It's completely up to you.